So when I was informed that I was going to be a speaker tonight, I did what I felt was pretty natural. I informed all my family and friends that I was granted this outstanding opportunity. And I went above and beyond that. I pestered and bothered random people who I didn't know, passengers on planes, families eating dinner. Hey, I'm going to be a TED Talk speaker. It's a big deal. Now, out of everybody that I told, maybe 5 people knew what a TED Talk was. Now, before we go ahead and criticize them, I'll go ahead and openly admit that I probably watched my first TED Talk less than 2 months ago. Shocking, right? How was somebody like me selected to do this when I had absolutely no clue what I was doing? So that judgment is absolutely natural. Typically, we find people standing, speaking in front of an audience, potentially well-dressed, holding, hopefully, all of your attention, to be some kind of authority figure or an important person. Again, we base this kind of information and these judgments off little information or context. Now, if we can all be honest with one another, how many times do we do this throughout the day? 1, 2, a dozen, quite a few dozen. I guess depending on the social settings that we surround ourselves in, it could vary. So when I was 17, I was in the United States military, and we had to fill out a very basic piece of paper. Contact information, our name, phone number, address. The soldier in front of me wrote down his state abbreviation, in which I replied, "Oh my gosh, you're a New England Patriots fan." He turned around and looked at me very oddly, and he's like, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, you wrote NE for the state." Yeah. So at 17, I believed that NE stood for New England, in which I believed was a state. I mean, after all, the NFL kind of educated me that New England was a state and a team that I did not care for. That's how ignorant I was. Now, again, I don't tell you that story to belittle myself or to discredit the military's judgment on allowing me to enlist. Rather, it's just to point out that it's another way that we base judgments off of very little context or information. Because while my ignorance was apparent to my fellow soldiers, society saw me as a 17-year-old male who sacrificed my life to defend the freedom and our people of this country. 2 completely different perspectives. And today I'm here to talk about why those kinds of judgments based on little context and information is incredibly damning, not just to ourselves and to our neighbors, but to our entire society, our nation, and the world as a whole. So now that we know the issue, I'd like to speak about the audience, or I'm sorry, not the audience, the community that I'd like to represent today. It's a community of those that have criminal records. There's one judgment for the day. If you didn't do it, you're probably lying to yourself. Out of all the talks that we've heard today, none of them had ever committed a crime. So why should we advocate for those who have done wrong? They've acted on poor judgment. More than likely they went to prison, and of course they all have a record. Well, that's because there are tens of millions of people in our country that have criminal records. In the last 30 years, felony convictions have risen 500%. 600,000 people are released from institutions every year. They are our neighbors, our classmates, and even politicians. That part's probably not that surprising. So why do these statistics matter? Well, 14% of Florida's adult population has a felony conviction. Every day when somebody's released from prison, we, as an individual, have the opportunity to either help them with their rehabilitation path and reentry into society, or we have the opportunity to be a barrier in their life. Now, each state government has already compacted a list of barriers for each of these people trying to return to society. You cannot live here, you can't vote here, and you most certainly not work any of these jobs. It's rather exhausting. Could you imagine if we treated every person that had a criminal record the same? Could you imagine no Lil Wayne and Tupac not being able to sign a record deal based on their criminal records? If Mark Wahlberg was never allowed to pose for Calvin Klein? How about Allen Iverson never being allowed to play professional basketball? Or maybe the worst one yet, no Robert Downey Jr. being Iron Man. We're pretty doomed, right? And I understand that that's a very small sample size. Not everybody's going to grow up to be a hip-hop star, a basketball star. But again, if we continue to put up barriers and close doors on the opportunities, we'll never know the potential of what these people who had once made a mistake in their life could do. And speaking of not knowing, any of you familiar with what a person with a criminal record looks like? Different hairstyles, speak a different language, eat differently. Is there some kind of indicator that allows us to know that somebody is a person with a criminal record? If only we could think of a way to identify those people. I think I got something. Now, to be completely honest, people with a criminal record, they look just like me. They're no different than you and I. They're just somebody that acted on poor judgment, maybe a long time ago, maybe recently. So my question is, would it help if we wore these around at all times? That way, you could predetermine your judgments on us. Cross the street before our paths intersect. Allow us in your social groups. Judge us before we ever get to that opportunity in a job interview, before analyzing if we could be an asset to your company. And why is it that we can go a span from minutes to years being completely all right with a person, and then all of a sudden you find out something that happened in their past, and now your perception of them is incredibly dark, and you feel betrayed because you thought this person was a good person. The whole time you knew that person. You just didn't know of their failure from so long ago. And now that's what we're going to base their future off of. If this outfit seems dramatic and I'm theatrical in all this, it's probably because we're making another judgment based on little information. You see, as a convicted felon, I was denied the opportunity to work a landscaping job that I found on Craigslist, only for them to contact me a few days later to see if I would like to hire them for their service. I was denied an opportunity to work at Walmart, working a midnight shift. Yet, I'm still allowed to shop there and help people that can't reach things on the top shelf. Maybe the most heartbreaking one. When I graduated with my associate's degree from St. Petersburg College, I attempted to transfer here to the University of South Florida, St. Pete. I was denied because I had a criminal record. If it weren't for the faith and the trust that people had in me from professors that believed in me making a phone call to this campus, I would have never been allowed to come here. That means I would have never been allowed to mentor students with learning disabilities in the Stingray program. I would have never been able to work in the Military Veterans Success Center, ensuring that student veterans receive their benefits. I would have never been elected 2 years in a row to be a student body senator and to chair an appropriations committee in charge of budgeting multi-millions of dollars. And I would never have been the USFSP's most outstanding graduate. All that's not to talk about myself, and I don't want to be an exception. I hate being the exception. I have a great support system, and a lot of people do. We're running out of opportunities, and instead of barriers, I'm asking for potentially an open door here and there. In 2 days, on April 13th, will mark 7 years from the day that I walked out of a Florida State prison. No matter the accolades that I've received over those 7 years, society still sees me as this person that wears this orange jumpsuit. I try every day to make this world a better place. A lot of us do, the tens of millions of us that have criminal records. We try. I'm asking that you guys potentially fight with us instead of against us, because we all have to live in this world together. Thank you.